Go for it.
Right, let's go for it. Come on. It's the fun little walk on that we did at the beginning. So, Keiti, very nice to sit down with you today. Thanks so much for coming on the People Making Payments podcast. I know we've got so many fun topics to cover. But before we get into it, for those that don't know you, let's say you're meeting them at the party for the first time or at networking drinks. How is it that you describe what you do?
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to put it is a creative multitasker, I think. As a marketer, many marketers will probably know you need to do almost everything a little bit. So yeah, I think that is the most accurate way of describing what I do to someone who maybe doesn't know.
Yeah. What part of what you do you like the most? What's the part that you really get your teeth into?
The creative part, yeah. I'm a creative person, I think, at the deep down. So I think that's what really drives me.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about multi-banking and get your perspective on that, because it's a massive topic in the industry, and I think for good reason, right? We see that there's a rise of multi-banking in terms of customers using different banks, potentially for different purposes. What are you seeing in the way of multi-banking in the industry, and what does multi-banking mean to you essentially at LHV?
Yeah, so we're at a place right now where no one is using kind of one bank anymore. The way I would maybe refer to it even is financial polyamory. So
I really like that. I love that phrase, and I haven't heard it before.
Yeah, so it's not even about the multiple accounts anymore. It's about the multiple apps. Each app has a different function. So I think that is largely what drives it. People are looking for the best functionality, and it happens to be app-based largely. So at this point, I think on average, it's 5 banking apps per person that we're competing with. So that is the situation we are in.
Amazing. So it seems that in that from a marketing perspective, sort of you're fighting, if you like, against the attention of different different apps or different accounts that your clients might be using. Tell me a little bit more about how you think they're using different types of apps or different types of banks differently, right? What are the different use cases that you kind of have to consider when you think about this from your viewpoint as a marketer?
Mm-hmm. So I think what largely drives this whole thing is the rise of fintech, right? Everyone is looking for the best experience in every area in their life. So that includes you want the best app for investing, you want the best app for your savings, you want the best app for whatever financial things you do. But basically you have an app for everything. And we're at a place where I feel like not a lot of people do all of it well. So, and in a competitive market, it is really kind of important to just maybe also kind of narrow down on that one thing that you do really well, and that's just the reality we are in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you think, with consumers then, do you think that this sort of multi-banking behaviour, is it by design because they're kind of curating their perfect sort of banking stack for themselves, or is it because, do you think, there's no one player has kind of got it right and can't necessarily service all the needs that they have? What do you see when you look kind of out across the market in that respect?
I think it's a combination of both. We definitely kind of see people building their kind of ideal financial toolkit, so to say, right? But at the same time, it's more of banking has become a comparison sport. So it comes down to also other factors like switching is relatively low cost and really easy nowadays. It's literally a matter of downloading an app. And everything else in life, I guess everyone is looking for the best user experience. So it ultimately comes down to this specific app is just better for this job. And that is all it's ultimately about, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sometimes it's really important to remember that, consumers or customers, they're not necessarily thinking about products in the same way that a bank is thinking about products in terms of how they've structured it internally, right? They're thinking, to your very good point, what are the jobs that I need to get done, what in my life, and they're actually as we all do, thinking about them, themselves essentially. And
Yeah.
like you said, building a toolkit. And I think that's this idea of a toolkit is really interesting. But it's also interesting because you mentioned that, the sort of the friction to open accounts now is so much lower. Like you said, it's so easy to download something into the app. But I guess a download doesn't translate into usage or loyalty, right? So what's your perspective on that from the multi-banking perspective?
Yeah, so that's kind of a slippery slope, right? Because that switching also means that you don't have, so they're not switching for the right reasons, potentially. That's a lot of what we see. They will switch for a good rate. They will switch for, I don't know, some kind of loyalty program. I mean, the benefits that and things that are handed out just to switch your account are pretty easy. So I think a lot of those things would drive those decisions. It doesn't mean that they actually, I don't know, resonate with the brand or the mission necessarily. As you said, it's very kind of personally driven, I think.
Absolutely. And it sounds from what you're saying, like in terms of can be quite sort of for short-term gains, right? Sort of like rate driven or fairly kind of commoditized in terms of the decisions that are being made. So within this environment then, like what do you see in terms of how banks or payment companies kind of can build a kind of sense of loyalty and primacy with customers, or actually is primacy no longer relevant? Have we kind of gone so far into multi-banking now that sort of primacy isn't really the name of the game anymore? Or what do you think about that?
I think the term like primary bank in itself is more of a technicality. I think people don't have as an emotional relationship as they maybe used to have with their banks. Sure, they might care about where their salary goes to, and that largely never changes. But other than that, I think everything is pretty much up to grabs.
So, okay, do you think that there's anything else then from a multi-banking perspective that you think, from a marketing perspective, you really look at in terms of from a differentiation perspective in this very, very noisy marketplace?
I guess you need to be like really, really clear about what you're doing. What are you good at? What is your app for? Who is it for? When you're competing in such a noisy market, it's really important to kind of narrow down, I guess, your overall mission, and kind of figure out who you are for and who you're talking to at the end of the day.
Yeah. You talked about the importance of really knowing your customer. Like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
And what are you solving for? So that when you're operating in that multi-banking space, you're kind of carving out like a really sort of distinct place to play.
Yeah.
So how do you go about really understanding who your customer is, essentially, I think is what I'm trying to ask.
Okay, I think ultimately first you gotta define within the company and within the brand like who we are and what do we stand for, right? And then you gotta define who is that ideal customer for you, based on what you have to offer as well. I think it's really, really important, like market research, segmentation, all of that, the pre-work that goes into defining that audience is super, super important. Also, I think, like from an LHV perspective, right, I think for us, we're not for everyone, and we're not scared to kind of say that. We know exactly who we are for. And I think the people who are looking for the same things, which is probably simplicity, efficiency, just a kind of straightforward user experience as well as a market-leading rate, I think that is what we are known for, and those are the people who will come for us.
And I love that. I think that's so like quite a good nugget of wisdom, right? Is not to chase everybody everywhere all of the time, but to have that confidence and the clarity of this is who we're here to serve, this is who we are, this is who we're here to serve, and it kind of helps to cut out the rest of the noise.
Yeah, and in a noisy market, like if you're competing with such big players, that's kind of the only way you can approach things, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And was that process different, do you think? So coming from like across, it's from Estonia, is it Estonia, isn't it, that LHV originates in? So I think we're going to, we can talk about sort of the market expansion piece in a minute. But my question is, sorry, Dan, you can edit this later. My question is, did you have to, as you took your proposition from Estonia into the UK market, did you have to redefine who you are and who you serve based on to what degree Estonia versus the UK is more multi-banked, or the type of level of noisiness that you were operating in? Or was it always a case that you were able to take that very strong identity and a very clear sense of who your customer is and just sort of move it across?
So yeah, it was a lot easier said than done. I guess for reference, LHV is an Estonian bank that has a history of 25 years. We're the third biggest bank in Estonia. Estonia has only 1.3 million people, so the market and the competition is very, very different. We have a very established brand. Obviously, that does not translate to this market. You cannot rely on your history or reputation because no one knows who you are, and frankly, no one also cares. So I think the way we approached it was we knew that we do have a very strong brand identity. We did not want to change that identity. We wanted to keep some of those elements, but here it's all about kind of consistency and really being consistent with that brand messaging. So I think in a market like this, it's not a risk of being kind of rejected, it's being ignored, and that's what you're kind of fighting with. So for us, it was really, really important to find the right creative partners as well as media partners who can help us build out that kind of brand that already exists somewhere else, but kind of translated to the UK market, which includes obviously the creative side as well as the messaging as well. Because it just, we couldn't just take that and bring it here. It just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to kind of wrap up this idea around multi-banking then, what pieces of practical advice would you give to other marketers in banking and payments in terms of the opportunities and the risks kind of that multi-banking presents to them and how they can navigate this?
I think you need to become kind of comfortable with the idea that you're not the only bank in their life. That is just the reality of today and where we are at. Also, don't try to be everything for them, because the reality is that you probably can't. There is another app that will most likely be doing it better, might. And I think ultimately it's important to kind of keep in mind that with multi-banking, when you think of it as a concept, it's not about being loyal to the brand. To an extent, sure, but it's more about convenience, speed, efficiency, and being able to kind of service what this particular person is looking for in a kind of quick and convenient manner, and that's what it comes down to.
Fantastic. Great. Should we go to a segment? I know Dan's dying to get a word in over there.
Chomping at the bit. Awesome. Thank you very much. That was great. That was really interesting.
Yeah, super interesting.
And great advice to finish with, I think. Right, quick fire round. So it's called the People Making Payments podcast, which you've got to say slowly because you get your words in a tangle otherwise. And this probably is some questions about you as a person, but in a work environment.
Cool.
So they're just like simple yes, no, or option A, option B questions, just a bit of fun. Feel free to explain your answer if you feel like you want to, but there's no need to. And I'm going to have to freestyle the last one because Shona stole it in the intro. So I'm going to make up the last one on the fly. Okay, let's go for it. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
Remote working or in the office?
In the office.
Yeah.
People person? Being around people?
100%, yeah. I like being around my people and my team, especially if, it's a cool place to work, so it's really, I enjoy it.
I think especially as marketer as well, like it's where you get some
fun.
of the best ideas, right?
Yeah.
Or people
Yeah.
to tell you that your ideas aren't good. That's important as well.
Yeah, fair.
And does everyone kind of come to you with all the questions? I feel like marketers, they're expecting all the answers all of the time.
Like and also the most random things, like that would be nothing to maybe do with marketing, but I guess that's just kind of what marketers do.
Yeah.
And also people just think it's all fun and games all the time. Weirdly enough, it's just, which it is a lot of the times as well. It is probably from a financial perspective, the most fun job to have, I guess, from a creative perspective. But it isn't all that most of the time.
There's a lot of grunt work. Yeah, Dan knows.
IT support.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything.
Making things look pretty, like PowerPoint prettification
Yeah.
is a big one.
There's that. There's all sorts. Okay, brilliant. Easy one. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
That's way too easy.
Links to being a morning person though. Morning person, coffee. Meticulous planner or figure it out as you go?
I'd love to say I'm a meticulous planner, but I'm not. I'm like I figure it out as I go usually. There is some planning involved, but it usually kind of...
I think though, if you're like a creative person like you are, you can kind of get away with that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of like how the juices get flowing, isn't it? It's being a bit spontaneous.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like if you do have you ever done like one of those personality tests like things? I find those fascinating because actually a lot of I reckon by looking at someone's like profile on one of those, I think you probably guess a lot of the answers to these questions because I reckon they map if you were to look at them. Industry conference or company offsite?
I think offside.
We met at a conference.
Even though I love good,
No, that was a nice conference.
I love
It
a
was
good
nice meeting you at that conference.
It was very nice. I love a good conference, but usually it involves a lot of work as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of work, especially if you have a presence and everything else. So
Yeah, all of the booth, and I liked your booth at the last event that we went
yeah,
to. It was nice.
we're going to Money 2020 as well, which is probably our flagship event. So we're really excited about that as well.
Yeah, fab. We'll be there as well.
Well, we'll see you there.
Yeah. You can meet someone else. There's more than just me and Dan that work at KAE, so you'll meet more KAEs there, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And right, bear with me because it's the last one that I've got to make up. Originally, it was what do you enjoy most about your role, but we know. So let's go with, maybe it doesn't even have to be about this role, but what is the campaign or piece of work that you are proudest of?
I think there might be a few. I think as a marketer, I will always remember seeing my idea on the street, even in Tallinn initially. But if someone would have told me 4 years later, I'd see things that I kind of managed come to life in London, I would have said no way. But that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So I think
Side of a big red bus or something.
yeah, it was like on Liverpool Street, just like seeing our creatives all across London. It felt really good, and like knowing it's a small Estonian brand, being Estonian myself, it just felt special. So yeah, I guess having the opportunity to bring that here, and having that trust from I guess my team and everyone involved is just, it feels really, really great.
Yeah. Such a proud moment.
Yeah.
Did you take like lots of selfies and then send it to your friends and family?
Everywhere, like
Yeah.
even though it was like literally same creative but different spots, like anytime I just needed to like pop out a phone. So I mean, but
Whole montage around London. Oh, brilliant. I can imagine, that would be a very proud moment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
I think it's funny, isn't it? Like in a world where a lot of the creative is like lives digitally, sometimes it's like the out of home stuff that is the most impactful, that you kind of remember, the stuff you see, the billboards and stuff that kind of really, I guess it comes to life in a different way. It feels more
I guess it's
like
physical,
longer lasting,
right?
And like more tangible. Yeah.
And online it's like there's so much noise anyway, so you notice a little less, even though obviously if you're doing a campaign, most likely you're doing the same thing online as well.
Yeah.
So
out there in the real world.
in the
That's
wilderness.
awesome. Thank you very much. That's it. It's a very easy round, quick fire round. It was good
Stuff.
good fun. Thank you.
Let's
Right,
talk
back to you,
about
Shona.
payments and banking again, shall
Yes,
we?
over to you.
Yeah. So let's talk about differentiation in some detail, because I know from speaking to sort of different marketers in the industry, it's quite difficult to differentiate in banking and payments in a lot of ways, right? Because it's very regulated market for one, and there are sort of, I guess, some tenets of payments and banking that kind of need to be adhered to, right? The trust, the security, all those things about keeping money safe. And I think sometimes, you do see it when you go to industry conferences or look on like different websites in the industry. It can all start to look a bit samey, right? It can look a bit like a wash of blue and grey and beige. And it can be, do you know what I mean? I think, and I sometimes think, as a marketer in this world, balancing the compliance and the trust, but then also sort of the innovation, like the amazing innovation that we see in the financial services industry, and still letting that kind of come through. And, how, like in your mind as a marketer, do you see that as a thing and sort of like a problem to overcome? Or how do you think about sort of like the challenge of differentiation in banking and payments?
Yeah, I think it's not about necessarily shouting louder. I think it's being purposefully or meaningfully different. So as you said, everyone's saying the same thing: safety, innovation. They all have like the kind of same messaging. Trust. Those are the words that financial services love to use, and those are the words we kind of, I guess, react to as well, right? But I think, as I mentioned earlier, in a market like this, you're competing against being completely ignored. So I think it's really important to have some kind of clarity of purpose. You need to know exactly who you are for. Again, you don't need to be for everyone, and that's completely fine. Defining what you stand for, what your brand stands for, and I think ultimately, like that's already a really good starting point, and defining that for yourself.
So it's sort of about the story and the identity.
Yeah, I think like the brand does do a lot of that, carries a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, I mean, from a visual perspective, and I'm this isn't my area of expertise as well, but I know sort of see like running campaigns and sort of the visual element of standing out and connecting with the people whose attention you want to, maintain. What do you think about that from a sort of visual marketing perspective in terms of differentiation?
I think ultimately, again, since you're competing with so many people in such a noisy market, it's consistency ultimately. Like I think that both what you are saying as well as what I guess your brand looks like or manifests in kind of the visual creative side, that needs to be consistent. So, I mean, there is a reason why certain banks have certain colors, like they have gone for that color because when someone sees that color, they will automatically think of them. So I think like defining things like that is equally important.
Yeah. So like the consistency of
kind of, yeah, those
the
brand
vibe,
the
let's say.
vibe or the brand elements. So it's logo or colors or font. I think there's a lot of things, but yeah, just staying consistent and doing things consistently is ultimately that will kind of, people will start to notice you eventually.
Yeah. And do you think that differentiation happens at the sort of the point of sort of awareness building of the brand, or how do you sort of architect a sense of differentiation across the customer life cycle? So not only in terms of sort of the advertising, but also and the brand awareness building, but is there a way, again, within sort of this idea of multi-banking, right, where they might be interacting with so many different brands, like on a daily basis? Is there anything in terms of through the customer journey or through the interactions that they have with the brand that kind of provide opportunities for differentiation in a deeply meaningful way?
I think, so the way we've, I guess, approached this is you need to really kind of find your space and find what you're good at and what you are valued for. So in a market like this that is super, super noisy. We see a lot of performative banking, a lot of banks wanting to be your friends, sending you happy Pancake Day emails, birthday emails. So we've kind of taken the opposite approach of that. We don't want to be your friend as a bank in a sense. We want to make your money work harder for you. That's what we're supposed to do. So I think that is the way, I guess, we found our space and what we want to do different. So we kind of have this stance, I guess, against performative banking specifically, which we do see a lot right now. But
I'm getting you're coining so many terms today. We've had polyamorous banking, we've had performative banking, and I hope that you're copywriting all of this, because these are great terms that are going to definitely stand out in my head, and I'm going to start using them, I'm afraid.
Go
left,
ahead.
right, and centre. But this idea of performative banking is really interesting, and you've just mentioned, for example, at LHV, really you're looking into like how you make money work better for your customers. That seems like really relevant in this day and age, right, where there's a lot going on in terms of people improving their financial literacy, looking to sort of build wealth and what have you. So could you talk a little bit to sort of how you're sort of harnessing this trend for the customer demand itself, right, to be more literate and to build wealth, and how you sort of make sure that you're sort of the go-to provider to help them do that?
So, yeah, I think LHV, in our DNA, in essence, we did start out as an investment bank in Estonia. So I think saving, in essence, is like part of our DNA already. So it was already a really important part of our mission when coming here. The way we do that is we are able to offer market-leading rates. So I think at the end of the day, that is one of the big drivers. People want to make the most money with the least hassle, right?
They don't want to be like, hey, happy Pancake Day.
But where's my money, But so it's, I think for us, it's a combination of really good rates, a really good user experience, a simple app that kind of, we get in touch with you only when needed, but also we're available if you do want to get in touch. So there is that kind of, I guess we're doing what we're supposed to do as a bank for you, and we're not going to be doing anything more, I think, from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And does this sort of this level of differentiation, does it come in terms of different life stages that somebody might be in terms of their journey? Like, is it sort of positioned for a certain sort of life stage segment, or does the proposition flex according to where someone might be in their sort of wealth building journey?
I think it's something that we should. From an LHV perspective, we are still so young. We're still building out that customer base, so we're still kind of getting to that life cycle. I mean, we got our banking license in 2023. We came out with our retail bank at the end of 2024, officially launched last spring. So we've only been on the market for less than a year. And those customers that we have been with us most likely for a year. So we're kind of just getting to a place where we could build that out, but equally exciting, right?
Yeah, for something for the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Super interesting. So when we think about differentiation, coming from a home market and then taking that, exporting it into a new international market, what kind of did you learn about differentiation kind of through that journey, and what advice would you give to other marketers if they're sort of taking a similar journey themselves?
I guess for us, right, when you're in your home market, people already get you. So coming into a noisy market like this, it was really important for us to build out that specific space. Because as I said, you're no longer competing with the reputation. It's more you're competing with things that people already assume, people already know, and people already use and like. So on top of that, you're competing with much larger banks with way larger budgets. So it's kind of a lose-lose anyway. So the approach, I guess, that we have had is like, we're pretty happy not to be for everyone. We know who we are for, and we go after those people in a very kind of targeted way. So when you are such a small player in such a big market, it forces you to be a lot more sharper in a sense, because you need to know like what you say, who you say it to. You need to be a little more focused. You need to know where that smaller budget is being allocated, and you need to be smart about it so you do get those results as well.
And does it allow you to be more creative? Because I suppose when you're kind of an incumbent, you sort of like you play by the incumbent rules, right? But then I guess when you come into a market and you're less well known in the new market, you've kind of got a bit like sort of maybe within limits, sort of like maybe a bit more freedom to sort of establish a new identity in that market and be a bit more creative. Is that true?
It is true. And I'd say definitely in Estonia, from a banking perspective, we are considered kind of this bold and kind of cool bank, I guess, versus the other banks we compete with. There are more of legacy banks. Also, one thing you kind of need to understand, or that's kind of exactly what we are, I guess, not standing against, right? But your bank should be about making money. So we realized that being cool and being maybe will not translate in this market, or at the end of the day, it will just make us blend in, which we don't really want to do. So it's again a risk of being ignored. So that's where we kind of came into play with shifting that perspective, and instead of being like cool and wanting to appeal to everyone, it's completely fine not to.
Yeah. And I think what's really come through for me in this conversation is that sense of like authenticity and clarity. Like that seems to be a bit of a theme today in terms of, you know, having that focus on who you're serving, what you're solving for, and confidence in who you are. And
Exactly.
you don't necessarily need to be the quirkiest or the coolest, or you know, you can get attention in other ways, as long as you have that clarity.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I feel like just bringing real value to the table, I guess.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned, you know, thing, but it still works. So just bring the value.
Yeah, bring the value and it works.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so to wrap up, I am always fascinated to know if you weren't working in banking or payments, in a parallel universe, what would Keiti be doing? What would parallel Keiti be doing?
I would have a bakery. I would be running a bakery.
Oh,
Yeah.
what kind of? Well, I say what kind of bakery, but like sort of like, was it like a Danish bakery
It's more
or
of
like a
like
little cutesy
like
English one?
I have like an idea of this brunch spot, like a brunch spot, but you can have brunch every day. Something very low key, kind of Scandi, cute. Yeah, someday, hopefully.
Nice. Well, I'll be
We'll
your
see.
first customer. That sounds good. And what do you think is the biggest sort of source of pride for you, or your biggest achievement that we wouldn't read on your LinkedIn page?
I think moving here, obviously moving to London with my cat alone, kind of uprooting my entire life. Shout out to my cat Ghost. But
Are they quite adaptable, are they?
yeah, no, she's great. But yeah, that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, well, it's so nice to have you.
Thank you,
Thank
yeah.
you for coming on and being a wonderful sport and sharing some really interesting perspectives
Yeah, it was really
with me
nice.
today.
Thank you.
Let's do a quick cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to you, Keiti.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you, Dan.